Hello, everyone. It's time to start our hopefully traditional live talks with pros, and it's time to invite a very prominent person. So let's get to it. This time, as you can well imagine, is going to be Polina Kordik. So, waiting for everyone to join. Great. Hello. Can you
Hi
hear me?
there, Stan. So nice to see you.
Oh, yeah, the day has finally come. I'm so happy, because I actually dreamed of that and then we kind of clicked, right? And we made it happen, right?
Yeah, the right
So,
time, the right place.
right, exactly. Alrighty then. So let's get to it. We are doing another live talks with pros episode, and this time I'm very happy to welcome someone who I very much hold in high regard, Polina Kordik. And even though Polina needs no introduction, I will still say a few things that I have in mind when I think of Polina. First things first, Polina is definitely a very much prominent ALT personality, as you can well imagine. Okay. Also, when I think of you, I see, languages aficionado personified. All right. And
Yes, there is some truth in that.
oh no, it is. It is the truth, the real deal. And also, you are the Polina School of English owner and a team leader of a highly qualified, impressive team of teachers, as everyone can well imagine,
Yes,
right?
yes, I'm very proud of my team. That's right.
Yeah, exactly. So we can say a lot of many kind of things, but definitely we have to get down to the topic now, right?
Right.
So before we dive into the discussion, where obviously Paulina will be doing a lot of talking because she's the guest of honor, I would like to name the topic again to voice it. Yeah, so the topic is the intricacies of teaching advanced and proficiency students. So it makes perfect sense to start with walking our colleagues through the intricacies of those advanced and proficiency levels. In your book, Paulina, how do you see the differences in those complicated details between the two?
Between the advanced and proficiency.
Right.
Well, the thing is, the difference is quite clear cut, but it's very often misunderstood.
Mm-hmm.
Because, for example, when people get their CAE grade A, they are very proud of themselves for a good reason, because there's a
Mm-hmm.
very good reason to be proud of yourself. But at the same time, they think, okay, if there is C2 on my certificate, so I'm C2. And they think that it's just a very short shot till the CPE. And very often such people are very disappointed by themselves, actually, because they realize that CPE is a little bit more complicated, or way more complicated. If I try to make this long story very short, CPE is more about your ability to talk and write about abstract topics, to be able to, on the one hand, to generalize on a global level, see the connection between things, but at the same time, to be able to talk about things in detail.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that if we just, there are a lot of other things that CP or proficiency level is about. But for me, this is the key, the ability to talk about abstract things, generalize, and be able to go into detail to, for example, to make your point.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. But again, the line is still pretty much vague because what is abstract? It could be anything. Some people might say, oh, it means probably you can talk about physics. But again, does it include physics or chemistry or any others like
I think I can give you a very good example, because this is example just from my yesterday's lesson.
Mhm.
You know that there is a genre of letter in both CE and CPE exams. And I think that the genre of letter is very much misunderstood, because if we look at old books, like 20 years ago, we can write letters of complaint, letter of request, letter of this, letter of that. This is a little bit obsolete already. What I did for this session, for my students in my course, I took and analyzed all the letter tasks from the official past papers. I made 2 columns, and then when I showed it to my students, the difference became very, very vivid. Let me give you a couple of examples from my memory. So, for example, CAE. Write a letter defending the value of pop music.
Mhm.
Write to your local city council to defend a bus line that is about to close. Write about I don't know, the value of playing for children, yeah, so the role of the game. So
Mhm.
this was CAE. Now listen for CPE. The value of friendship, the role of risks in your life, the benefits and downsides of social norms, or the task that we actually discussed today. So the task that we looked at with my CPE group was about how social norms, rules, and regulations limit personal freedoms. And I think it's a perfect example for a CPE level task to talk about all the coronavirus restrictions nowadays. Do they limit personal freedoms? Are they introduced for common good? Yeah. So there's a lot of these things, and these are the things for the C2 level. And I hope that you, those of you who listen to us now, you see the differences. Yeah. So C1 is a little bit more down to earth, a little bit more, you know, related to everyday life, related to some probably practical things if you think about this bus line. Yeah. But CPE is really, well, if you want, a little bit more philosophical, yeah,
Mhm.
and more abstract.
And that's more about us, right?
Mm-hmm.
We are thinkers and Mrs. Philosophicals. You know what? When you were listing those topics, what came to mind was the fact that even in the Russian state exam in English and some Olympiads, yeah, we might come across such topics like
Indeed.
the value of friendship, right? The idea of literacy. Remember that topic? That was like, yeah.
Digital literacy, yeah,
Right. So it's quite an
the
intricate thing.
nightmare. Mm-hmm.
To discuss for sure. And that also made me think of another thing that I might run with another prominent LT personality. I actually already invited him, Alexei Kanabeyev, you know him perfectly well. We will kind
I
of,
love him. I'm a huge fan of him.
because it will be a continuation of our discussion in a way,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I now kind of understand that for sure. But again, a lot of people would say, do we really talk a lot about this in life? Why would we talk about friendship? What do you say in such cases? Because, for example, in my classes, when I talk to my colleagues where I teach C1, C2, we do discuss such topics. We do think of like what might be behind the lines of this and that. Yeah. Why did she say that? What do you make of it? Yeah. What's your like mental picture of this and
This
that?
is a very, very good question, and I have quite a lot of thoughts about it. And recently we had a very vivid discussion on my VK page about what is it, the C2
Mhm.
level, do we need that? And the thing is, the truth is, we don't discuss these things often in real life. Hardly ever, maybe. Well, depending on your circle of, I don't know, friends and family, whatever you do. And there is a very big and important question that every learner should answer. Do you need to be able to talk about these things? Do you need to be competent in these things? And do you need the C2 level? Maybe you don't, because you can do a lot with a good, solid B2 level, and you can be perfectly fine. And I have also the personal example from my life, because I lived in Sweden for 5 years. I love Swedish. This is a beautiful language. I just like, I feel so strongly about loving Swedish language, you know, being a small language and being not the most popular language. But I lived there and I studied at university, and I lived in a host family. The father was Swedish, the mother was Russian. So we spoke Swedish in this host family. And my university, well, the lectures were in Swedish, the reading was in English, and my written submissions were in English. And my level of Swedish grew from, let's say, A2 to something around B2 plus, probably the lowest of C1. And at some point, after, let's say, 2 years of living in Sweden, I realized that my Swedish is more than enough for all the communicative situations I am in. When I go to a doctor, when I buy groceries, when I talk to my family about my day at university, when I talk to my colleagues at university, this is more than enough. And I started to stagnate in my Swedish. So I had this B2 plus, I got a certificate. I was very happy and proud about myself. But then I realized that if I want C1 or C2 in my Swedish, I have to do more. I have to read fiction literature. I have to watch films or series. I have to, I don't know, join a book club or a discussion club, do something extra to develop my language at this level. And at that moment, in that situation, that wasn't a big priority. I was really doing fine with my B2 plus, and that was enough, you know, because people talked to me and people, well, really made compliments about my Swedish. That was, well, at a decent level, and that was enough. So I think this is a very important lesson for people who think that, well, I don't know, if I hire a teacher from, let's not speak about native speakerism now, yeah, but whatever, you have a teacher who have lived for 20 years in Canada. What does it tell you about their language proficiency? Well, more or less nothing. Yeah, so they are almost certainly B2 or C1, but are they able to teach you C1 or C2? Are they able to teach you to lead these discussions, to plan such essays? This is a big question.
Yeah, it's a good one, actually, right? And you know what? When I was getting acquainted with your biography on your website yesterday, it was a long read. I loved it a lot. I remember you even conducted some sort of research on whether emotional language can be acquired easier, right? In the English-speaking environment, for example, or Swedish-speaking, and not Swedish speaking. And you learned that when you're like in the non-native environment, you can acquire it easier. So that was quite in finding, right?
Yeah, I can comment a little bit on that. That was my dissertation at Stockholm
Yeah,
University. And with emotional language, I mean language that describes humor, sadness, and so on and so forth. For my research, I actually took a muted film, a muted episode of Mr. Bean, a very old school one, at the swimming pool when he was afraid to jump from the springboard. And the task of my participants, my research participants, they had to describe what they saw as they watched this film. This is a very well, traditional way of eliciting the language from the participants. And predictably, I had two groups. I had Russians who lived in Sweden, who migrated, and Russians who lived in Russia and studied Swedish. That was a very hard nut to crack, to find enough participants, but I met fantastic people when I was searching for them. And well, I'm very, very grateful for them. We're still friends with some of them. And the shock, the surprise was that the people who lived in Russia and studied Swedish in Russia, they were more evocative, more elaborate, more precise in a way. The range of vocabulary in many ways was wider. And we did a lot of statistical tests. That was quite an intricate study. I did what is called multiple regression. Yeah, so when you have two things that correlate, yeah, you try to find the connection between them too. And after all this statistical research, we came, well, my scientific supervisor and me, we came to the conclusion that it might be, again, in research, you never know for sure, yeah? So you suggest, you hypothesize. There might be the case that people who live in a non-language speaking environment, they are so motivated, they have this innate motivation.
Intrinsic, right?
Yes, intrinsic, that's another term of the same, yeah, intrinsic and or innate, or call it whatever, motivation to develop their language, and they surround themselves with language and they strive for this level, yeah. And people who lived in Sweden, they were more in a situation like I described about myself. They had their level, they were happy about it, they didn't need much, and they were sort of resting on the laurels, so to speak.
Wow, that's quite a finding, really, because usually stereotypically would think, no, move to the country, yeah, settle there, you'll be exposed to it, like I like to say in Russian, облучаться языком, right? But you see, it begs to differ. So it looks like, is it?
Just, yeah, one more addition. It's not always the case, of course. This is very much generalized, because at the same time, I had a couple of people, and one of them, Irina, she's probably watching us. So she had a very interesting case. She's married to a Swedish person, and they both are very much linguistically elaborated people, so to speak, and her husband constantly talks Swedish with her, corrects her. They discuss a lot of interesting things, because later I visited them and I spent evenings in their family. So they were very much linguistically aware, and in her case, the language was outstanding. Yeah, so it's very much about the surroundings, about who are the people you're talking to on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm. Really interesting. You know what I thought as well when you were talking about this? Maybe not a lot of people know that English is your like second or even third language, right?
Yeah.
You're in third on the website.
Third, yeah, it's rather third than second.
Right, which
Because of
means,
Swedish.
you know, stereotypically when we study at INYAS, right? I mean, the second language is kind of right?
Yeah.
But you break the mold. I mean, it's your third language, and look how astounding that is, right? The way you speak, and again, since you lived in so many countries, obviously you focused on a lot of things, but bilingualism, right, as well. One of those
Yeah,
things.
well, bilingualism was my research area at Stockholm University.
Right. Then German, you worked at a radio station, right? So a
Yeah,
lot of
German is
focus.
my first language.
Right. And then you are like very much leisurely talking in English about anything. And you reached that level a long time ago because you started taking exams like maybe 5 years ago or so. I just kind of, I'm this one.
2014. Yeah.
Because you started vlogging in like what, like 2016, 15, I saw you already like on some, you know, websites, VK, right?
Yeah, well, I started my VK group in 2018, but I took CAE in 2014, and
Mhm.
CPE was in early 2016. Yeah, so that's.
Yeah, so what I'm trying to say is when you put your mind to things, you don't even need to go to live, yeah, to those English speaking, Swedish speaking countries. You just set your goal, you work on it, you put on the hard work, and then you reap the benefits, right? That's how it
Yeah,
works.
yeah. So
Exactly.
I'm a living example of that. I'm
Exactly.
very proud of that.
That's why I said language aficionado personified, remember? Now, it makes perfect sense to move on to the discussion of how we started teaching advanced levels. That is advanced and proficiency. You teach C2 mostly, am I right?
C1, C2 in more or less equal proportions.
All right. So, guys, by the way, thank you so much for sending us so many questions.
Oh yeah,
Polina was very much surprised to see the amount and the intricacy of those kind of questions.
fantastic questions.
Yeah, you said огонь yesterday. Yeah, like
Yeah,
просто огонь.
that's right.
So, I decided to try to put the questions into a more logical order. So we'll start with the first one from Anastasia. And also, colleagues, if you have any questions, any ideas or thoughts, please make sure to put them into the comment section. We'll gladly comment on them too, okay? So one of the first questions for you, Polina, is how did you start teaching high-level students, and how did you overcome any fears or doubts, if you had any?
Of course, I had. And I think that if we talk about imposter syndrome, the
Mhm.
first thing is to think, it's so good that I have it.
Mm.
Because if you don't, I will have a question, yeah? Because the mere fact that you have an imposter syndrome, the mere fact that you lack some confidence when you start something new, means that you are fine with your self-esteem. Because if you don't have any imposter syndrome, if you're absolutely certain about what you do when you just and then the process of learning, well, that's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that if somebody wants to start teaching at higher levels, I think you need to have three conditions. So first of all, and I think that this is the most important part, you have to be ready to work hard, which means much harder than you worked before. Because this teaching high levels mean that you have not just to be a super good teacher, knowing methodology, knowing how to structure your lessons and your course. Your language should be up to scratch, because your students going to be constantly sort of checking you, yeah, against their representation of a teacher. This is hard, and this is why the second condition is, when you start, you need to have students who trust in you. And this is how I started. I had a very, very good student, Anastasia Gvoist. She's a super duper. I'm so grateful to her, because she came up to me at that time when I just passed my CAE, and she said, Polina, I want you to be my teacher. I have a confidence in you, and I know that you can do it. And this is how I started, you know, because a student came up to me. And I think that if somebody wants to start, you rather pick someone who you already know, you know, the person who you have rapport with, have already established this trust, you know, and this comforting atmosphere. Because, well, again, if I think about those people who like take CAE, pass it, and then advertise their CAE preparation course, well, this is where I have questions like, okay, do you tell your students that they're going to be guinea pigs? Because I think this is fair to say that, you know, guys, this is the first time I teach for CAE or CPE. I'm not that experienced. I hope you're going to have trust in me. I hope we're going to have a wonderful time. But I just have to warn you that there are things that I'm going to learn with you. Even though you learn every year, I still learn a lot. Every year new students come to our course. There is every year something new, some new discoveries, and this is wonderful. Well, this is the development. But particularly at the start, you have to sort of have this confidence in yourself and have the confidence in your students that they know that you are trying this for the first time, and they have their support. And this is basically how I started, yeah. And I had a very good student. I was prepared to work hard, and by that also I mean that if you have this ambition to teach at higher levels, this is really a borderline where you have to understand that English should be a huge part of your daily life. You have to do things in English just like routines, like on a daily basis. Reading, watching, talking to people. This should be just your life, you know, because if you don't, well, you're gonna have these problems, you know, because if you only speak English in your lessons, well, that's not enough. If you only learn what's there in the course book, it's not enough.
Yes, my thoughts exactly, especially the last thought, because I was going to comment on that. Loving it a lot. We're going to read a few comments before we continue, but I will also like to add the following. You know, when I vlog, when I make videos or teach classes, I probably create the impression of someone whose life is all about English. But what I like to say is that English is not my life. English is in my life, and that makes a huge difference. You see?
Yes,
And
exactly.
then they're like, but how is it different? And I'm like, wait, I'm not nudging myself to do things in English. I'm doing whatever I would do in Russian in English, right? And that's like the best, well, that's the silver bullet everyone is looking for, because I'm sure there's going to be questions like, but wait, I'm a mom of two, or I'm someone who's very busy, or I live out of a suitcase. How am I supposed to always talk, speak, write, you know, like read, right? So in this case, just do things you do in Russian, but in English, right? Simple as that.
Absolutely.
By the way, we're having a few comments on what you were saying. We have one of them. Oh my, imposter syndrome is a great boost to your CPD. You never stop and educate yourself. All right. Also, brace your inner imposter and pamper it. I love it a lot. I love it a lot. By the way, you were saying that if you don't have imposter syndrome, I have an issue with you. I have questions. I would agree. Because first of all, there's always going to be someone better than us, someone who works harder, who has sleepless nights, right? Tossing and turning, thinking how to do things, how to better themselves, right?
Yeah,
And it's fine. That's why we have this
absolutely.
LT community where we
Mhm.
unite together and we collaborate, we learn from each other, right? We
Exactly.
get inspired, we get nudged, right? That's a
Hmm.
great one. You also mentioned the imposter syndrome in terms of having it as a given part for the course, but
Hmm.
the question also was how to go about it. It looks like you're supposed to fight it. Is that
Mm,
true?
exactly. It's very much similar to the way we manage stress,
Mm-hmm.
because you might know that there are two types of stress. A stress that stimulates, because like a decent level of stress is good because it stimulates you. Problems start when there is too much of constant stress, of frustration. This is where things can get ugly, when you can get sleepless nights, you have to seek counseling and so on. But you can't imagine a life completely without stress. Everything we do has a certain stress level in it. We exercise, it's a stress for our body. We're talking with you now in public, this is a stress
Yeah.
because I have to concentrate, I have to collect my thoughts, I have to dress up, take my makeup and things like that. Yeah, I'm preparing for that. Yeah, and this is a certain stress, but this is a nice stress because it stimulates and I have a lot of reward by talking to you, by seeing how many people join us and so on. And I think that this is the same way you go about your imposter syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
You don't try to curb it, you try to actually embrace it and make it stimulating, because this boundary between I don't know, lacking self-confidence or having imposter syndrome and perfectionism. Because like, why is perfectionism bad? Because perfectionism numbs you, it just stops you.
Mm-hmm.
You think, I can't make it perfect, I will not make it at all. Every year I have people, very talented people, who work hard on a CPE course, on a CAE course. But when they realize after a course that they are probably not going to pass it with A, I had a couple of students who refused to take the exam. No matter how much I talked to them, I told them that you're going to devalue everything you've done, everything you've achieved, everything you've learned. And now, yes, well, there is a chance that you're going to take the exam and get an A, but there is quite a substantial chance that you will not, that you will get a B or a C. What's then? And well, procrastination, perfectionism is a numbing thing. And this is where you have to curb it or fight it or seek counseling, talk to a psychologist or whatever. Yeah, because it stops you. Yeah, it arrests your development. But if it's something that stimulates you, again, gave a very good example about how we in the ELT community, we look at each other and that harnesses us, you know, like, oh, look, he did that. Oh, that's a good idea. I have to think about something similar. She starts this kind of course. That's nice. I have to think, maybe I'm gonna do something else, right? So this is like we look at each other, we stimulate each other, and this is a healthy professional community.
Could not agree more, for sure. So it's a given. By the way, I can't but read this out. Polina, your pronunciation is so amazing. I'll
Oh,
second that.
thank you.
Now, you know what? To pick up on what you were talking about, I actually decided to look up what imposter syndrome means in scientific terms
Mm-hmm.
because everyone has it, but I don't think we understand exactly what it is. And get this, guys. What it says here is, I mean, if I encapsulate it, right? It says it's a psychological pattern in which an individual doubts their skills, right, talents, or accomplishments, and has a persistent, internalized fear of being exposed as a fraud. And that's where I get a bit of an issue because
Mm-hmm.
I would definitely agree with the first part of the
Mm-hmm.
definition. We
Mm-hmm.
always doubt, and doubting is good. It means you're a human being and you're learning. But one of the reasons why you have to embrace the imposter syndrome, but never be too harsh on yourself, is the fact that you can't be a fraud if you're constantly learning.
Yeah,
Right?
absolutely.
If you're looking at yourself, yeah, looking back, you're like, I'm better. I'm a better person. I'm a better speaker.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a better listener. I'm a better examiner or examinee, right?
Yeah.
So that would make sense. Also, you might well imagine I'm a big fan of tweets, using tweets in the classroom. And a long time ago, I stumbled upon this interesting tweet that makes perfect sense to voice here. It's about being jittery, about like classes before each class. One of the people says here, I've been doing this teaching thing for almost a decade. How is it that I still get jittery before the first class of a semester? Given to be a little bit jittery. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, so am I ready? Okay, do you remember what I have to say? So the
Yeah.
theme is about that, right?
This is the positive stress, because again, you may laugh, but like every September before the first day of the first of the new academic year, and before teaching a completely new group, I'm jittering, I'm like, oh my goodness, oh my goodness. And well, like a couple of years before that was, will they like it? And
Mm-hmm.
now it's like, oh my goodness, they must have so many expectations of me. And what if I just don't meet their expectations, Because, well, yeah, I'm a public person, and people imagine things about me that's absolutely fine. But what if I don't meet their expectations, And I have this feeling all the time.
I know the feeling, even though I'm not as much of a media person as you are, but each time I have a colleague come to me to my first classes with a beautiful C2, I'm like, what are you doing here? I mean, I can talk to you. Yeah, I can probably throw in a few idioms and collocations, but you're no worse than me at all.
Are you sure I can teach you something?
Yeah, I mean, like, okay, let's have some sort of a talk, right? One of the comments by Anastasia, people who are really good at something often have imposter syndrome, right? And no matter how much they grow, they think they're still no good, not good enough. What a true story. Agreed, agreed. Obviously, the more you know, the more you doubt. The less you know, the cockier you are. Like, look at
Yeah,
me, I can do
yeah.
everything.
Yeah, and this is again has this sophisticated name, Dunning-Kruger
Effect.
phenomenon, syndrome, effect.
Yeah, exactly.
When you're just starting, you have more confidence than when you're already working for a couple of years, let's say, and you see this ocean in front of you, the ocean of things you don't yet know or can't do. Huh?
It's me. When I started in 2010, I thought, okay, good English. I talk to natives all the time. Let's teach
Mm-hmm.
anyone and everyone. And you know how confident I was at that time. But now I'm like, no, I have to work harder. I have to, like, when I watch stuff, no, I can't just watch. I need to write down a few phrases. Yeah, when I talk, I can't just talk. I need to think of what they say and whether it makes sense for me to use it. You see? So I understand where you're coming from, for sure. By the way, one of the next questions, quite a similar one, is what tips can you give to teachers who would like to work with C2, C1 students but have a fear to start? You mentioned embrace your imposter syndrome, work harder than you worked before. Any other tips?
And have students who trust you. I think
Uh-huh.
that these are the three key things, because without one of those things, well, it might be hard to start. Really, if you have students who trust you, you don't have to sort of prove something to them. This is where you can start. This is where you can start your growth, your development.
Well, apart from obviously making sure that, as you said, your language is up to scratch. By the way, one of the questions was, I have a question for your discussion. Is reasonable proficiency in English a prerequisite for teaching advanced students? Because there's this idea if especially if you like literally comb through those social groups on Instagram or VK, you will hear people advise, you know what? Just start, do it. When you work with advanced students, you get advanced. As in, like, learn together. I would disagree with that.
No, no, it doesn't work this way. No.
Because they feel it, right? They feel
Yeah.
that you're not up to the task,
Yeah.
right?
On the one hand, there is some truth in this because you inevitably learn more when you teach at higher
Mhm.
levels. But it doesn't mean that, let's say you took your CAE grade C yesterday and now you're recruiting a group of students and promise them to prepare them for CAE. That's a little bit, yeah,
Mhm.
fishy, I would say. Yeah. Again, at the same time, if you have a student who says, I know it, I understand, let's try. Okay, let's try. But here again, particularly, I think that there is a slight difference if we talk about teaching at higher levels in general English or teaching for exams like CE and CPE. Because when we talk about teaching for exams, which is my area of expertise, there is also a huge difference between taking the exam yourself
Mhm.
and being able to teach it. I think that now we have a very vivid example in front of us: ice skating. Now it's everybody's talking about ice skating.
I
Even
was
I
watching
couldn't,
it, yeah, today.
yeah, couldn't escape it. And I think we see that very, very vividly, that a trainer, yeah, is one personality, one set of skills. A sportsman, yeah, or a sportswoman is a different one. And a trainer should be able to ice skate, because if they don't, like, how can they train? But at the same time, it doesn't mean that they have to be absolutely have a golden Olympic medal in order to be a trainer. But when they train, they need a lot of experience, years of experience of training other people in order to bring them to their success. And here again, I'm quite cautious about people who have just passed the exam and write proudly on their profiles that I'm preparing for CPE. Because, well, come on, if you did that with grade A, good for you, congratulations. But it absolutely doesn't mean that you can lead the other person to the same result or even to the similar result. There is a lot of things you have to learn by yourself. You have to understand how to teach it. You have to understand how to present the information, how to track progress, how to give feedback, how to understand the criteria.
Mhm.
That's again a very important thing, because again, when people pass, let's say, with an A, yeah, particularly successful cases, it doesn't mean that they understand the criteria, because it's an art in itself. You have to
Yeah.
specifically pay attention to that.
And sometimes you can just catch a lucky break with an A, right? And then, like, oh, but then are you that good? Maybe it makes sense to one day retake it if you're that persevering. Yeah, if you're exam oriented as well. Olga says, when you teach high level students, your English does not turn rusty. But when you teach young learners, you mostly tend to use simple words and phrases only. In this case, what do we do, by the way?
Well, to be honest, it's been years since I taught kids, but I would say I slightly disagree. Of course, it depends on the context of what kids you're teaching, what sort of environment is it. But one very interesting thing,
Mhm.
I looked at the comparison of the corpus vocabulary of different types of fiction, like
Mhm.
adult fiction, classical literature, and children books. And I was amazed to see that children's books have a higher, sometimes higher number of words, different words, rather than adult fiction.
Mm.
And I don't read children's literature, yeah, but I know my colleague. There is a wonderful colleague now, Natasha Yegorova, in my team, who
Mhm.
raises a bilingual child, and she reads a lot of books with her. And Natasha knows such things, you know, like such words. I haven't even heard them, you know, never in my life, you know. So I would disagree that when you teach children, or when you just dealing only with children, that's your language suffers somehow. But if you feel that it does, again, what sort of conscious effort can you do about it? Well, why don't you read or watch something apart from your job, from your teaching? Yeah. Because again, well, we all watch or read something. Why don't you do that in English, just to sort of to keep track of?
To keep it up. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it's one of the biggest misconceptions that, you know, teaching young learners takes maybe B1 for a teacher, yeah, to be B1. Because when I taught, I actually, maybe you know, from my post, I worked at a school for 3 years, then at university for 3 years, teaching future teachers. And at school, I had to teach like A0, all right? Like zero, complete, yeah, total beginners. And I wouldn't say my language changed, even though I had like 34 hours of teaching them per week. Okay, it's a lot. Because, of course, I tried to follow a bit of the curriculum, but at the same time, I tried to make sure that the tasks are differentiated, right? And that I can sometimes even spice up classes with like adults. Yeah, like, I mean, you know, year 11 students with some interesting, authentic vocabulary, functional language. And with kids, by the way, it wasn't just about like, you know, let's make a circle and let's sing a song. If you're happy and you know it, to clap your hands, right? That's it. It was more about like exploring the world via the language, yeah? Introducing vocabulary that they could use on the spot. So I would agree with that for sure, you know? So it's definitely about this, you know, just body parts, yeah? Or songs, or to be, right? So
and we can actually extrapolate that to higher levels as well, because let's say if you teach intermediate or upper intermediate students with the same course book year by year, you don't do anything else, you learn this vocabulary from this course book by heart for years, and if you don't do anything else, your language is going to be digressing. And it's can even be true for CA and CP levels. Again, if I look at, well, I teach my CA and CP courses by the books Expert, yeah, so Pearson. I've already know them by heart. I know all the vocabulary from them, yeah. If I stop doing anything else in my English and I just teach those course books, I will be fine, but my language will not develop. My language develops because I read a lot in English and I constantly find new words, maybe words that I don't need in my life, but I still come across them and like, okay, wow. It's a funny story. I came across a word toxin spelled with CS, and there was a song by my favorite band, Fool's Garden, who are Germans, by the way, actually. There was a song from 1996 that was called The Toxin. I was a child, a teenager at the time. And, well, that was similar to toxic with X, yeah? And I thought, well, that's something about probably toxic things. And I never, ever really looked it up until I read a historical book. And I made this word, the toxin, in terms of ringing a bell. And I realized that this is a name of a bell that had a particular meaning for medieval people. So this is sort of when there was some emergency, yeah, we know that people used to ring a bell. And I realized that the toxin is actually a bell. I looked up the text of the song and I realized that my whole life I completely misunderstood that.
Oh gosh, it's so true to life. I know what you mean. Sometimes you're like, oh, come on, I know this word. And then you're like, wait, it can also mean this, you know? It's like, you know, the same with the word hangover, that we might think, oh, it's about alcohol. No, it also means a thing of the past, something that was left behind, you know? It is прошлое. And each time I teach that, teachers or students are like, really? I would never use this word because it means this nasty thing you have in the morning. And then, hangover, formal English, interesting, you know? So yeah, I understand. By the way, I have to comment on the fact that you read a lot, because you've been posting a lot of stories and posts about reading a lot of books. And unlike my background, which is fake, yours is true. These are the books you're also obviously getting your hands on. Yeah, right? And already got your hands on. It looks really impressive. Loving it. By the way, among those books you're reading now, are there like more Russian books, English, or like what, vice versa, or 50-50?
Well, if I look at 2 years of intensive reading, around 70% of books are in English. So it's still a substantial majority. And sometimes I just basically will just allow myself to read something in Russian, but it's mostly audiobooks while I'm driving. You know, because when I'm driving, I'm still like concentrating on the road. And when I just switch on something in Russian, I still can like follow the development. But when I do read in my bed before I go to sleep, I read and listen at the same time, and I do it in English, because if I do it in Russian, it's a little bit like a waste, waste of time,
I'm missing out.
Yeah.
Right? Speaking about the topic we just discussed, I would never learn about dinosaurs without my kindergarten group. Yeah, Brontosaurus expert I am. By the way, my brother was very much fond of dinosaurs when he was a kid, and he loved English a lot. And we also learned a lot of different, terms and names for dinosaurs. What is your opinion? Why high school students have advanced level in English, but when they take part in the Russian Olympiad of school students, Vseros, they fail to get the first prizes? By the way, this was also about me. Before I give you the floor to answer, I have to say that I took part in the Olympiad a lot of times, in the regional part, but somehow I never made it to other parts, even though looking back and realizing that I was already quite good and I was teaching at that time, like year 11, year 10, I didn't get it. I would take the grammar part, the writing part really well, the speaking part they told me really well, but you never made it. So I never even was among the prizes, this preserve.
Yeah,
How can you explain that?
I can explain that in a very simple way. Olympiad is a form of a test, and a test should have validity and reliability. There are some other aspects of a test, but if we talk about, let's say, Cambridge exams, the procedures of validation and test for reliability are quite transparent. You can get a book. Well, just behind my camera there, I have 2 shelves of books about validity and reliability and other parameters of Cambridge tests. So we can be more or less sure that, let's say, CAE tests students at C1 level. When it comes to the Olympiads, it's all very opaque. It's very intransparent. We don't know who develops this test, with what goal in mind they develop this test. What are the assessment criteria? Do they have any, well, in Russian we call it a program, yeah? Do they have any sort of list of, I don't know, areas of knowledge, areas of competence, linguistic, communicative competence? My experience with working with students, because I used to teach for YGA and I did it quite successfully. I had a couple of extraordinarily successful students, and we also prepared for Olympiads. And when I looked at this test, and I looked at it for several years, I had all these questions in mind. Yeah. So what is tested? What is the validity? What is the reliability? What are the areas that are tested? Because I think everybody who who did something related to the Olympiads, you all have these crazy examples in your memory of things that were tested there. I don't know. I remember, like, it was in SPBGU Olympiad. They tested the knowledge of proper names in British culture, like Jack of all trades, a Dear John letter. I had absolutely no idea about it. Or I don't know, the pronunciation of English boroughs, this
No way.
Edinburgh, Middleborough. Worcester, yeah, how to spell this, Worcestershire. It's crazy. Like, who on earth needs that for real life? And I think this is an explanation why such brilliant guys as you and many, many, many others didn't succeed. Well, because if you know that you have to learn by heart all the names of all the boroughs in English, you will probably do. But if you don't know that, and like nobody tells you,
Yeah, right.
so how on earth can you do that?
And it's never on the syllabus, on the curriculum. And you know what? I was amazed at the amount of phraseology there. They ask you to, for example, deal with idioms from different languages, to identify those languages. How on earth should I know that aficionado is Spanish when I was a year 10 student, for example, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
faux pas is French, because French was never in the picture in my life,
Mm-hmm.
you know? So I was quite puzzled at that time, dazed even, you know?
Yeah, yeah. And there is another question here. When we think about Olympiads, so, okay, there are standardized tests. IELTS, TOEFL, Cambridge, YGE. They are standardized tests. They have to be standard. Olympiads is a thing that a university, a particular university, does as they please,
Mm-hmm.
as they please, to offer some benefit to some students. Again, there is a very opaque procedure, yeah. But maybe I'm suggesting, I'm speculating, maybe some of the linguistic Olympiads aimed at, well, let's say linguistic freaks, you know, just kids who are crazy about languages, who, I don't know, study the encyclopedia of languages as their bedtime reading for years, and they know all these crazy things. Or, I don't know, they're crazy about British history, and they know all about it, yeah? Okay, and if you want to identify this sort of whiz kid, there is probably such Olympiad is a way to identify it. But again, there are a lot of questions about it.
Oh yeah, too many. Hence the
Mm.
parallel stream. Olympiad is like a TV show. Samu Unni. You either know something or you're not. You don't.
That's a very good comparison. Yeah.
Also, it's even worse than MSLU's vocabulary lists in home reading classes. Kirka, Matiga, or die. Right. I mean, I don't know these two myself. Like, why would I? I have to read his history books, right, to know these for sure. Coming back to our discussion about high levels, because it also has a lot to do with those Olympiads, but still,
Mm-hmm.
we had quite a few questions about some common mistakes and misconceptions about teaching high levels. You kind of touched upon a few, but do you have anything on mind as well? Like, what is the biggest misconceptions about teaching high levels?
Mm-hmm. Misconceptions about teaching high levels.
For
Probably.
example, teaching high levels is all about teaching words and phrases like bellicose,
Yeah.
benevolent.
Mm-hmm. I was thinking about the same thing. So one of the biggest misconceptions about advanced writing, for example, this is the story that we have every year. Every September, we welcome new students and we have our first session on writing, which revises the very, very basic things like theme and rhyme, the and wait principle, the information principle, and all these things. And I start with showing the students one of our authentic examples of one of the students of previous years,
Right.
of an essay that is, well, let's say, impossible to read. Bulky sentences of 5 lines with a very opaque syntactic structure, with a lot of complex vocabulary, grammar. So you basically, you read it, you feel very stupid, and you don't understand what is it about. Yeah. And I asked my student, so what's wrong with this? And some people say, well, I'm sorry, but I don't understand.
Yeah.
This is like the honest thing about it. But some people like, oh, well, why it's so good? Well, it's advanced English. And when they slowly start to realize that advanced English is not about that kind of writing, they are shocked. Because when I tell them to write in a simple way, by simple I mean clear, they are shocked because they say, well, but it's too simplified. Well, what's wrong with that? Yeah, so you read a text and you understand. Yeah, I think that this is one of the biggest misconceptions, because I think everybody who has this experience of learning, studying at our linguistic faculties, linguistic universities, we have this very highbrow representation of, you know, advanced English, that this should be something.
Yes. But again, colleagues, do not get us wrong. It doesn't mean you don't have to know those words and phrases. They do exist, they're used. But what we're lacking when we speak English as non-natives is this feeling or sense of appropriacy. We forget that it's not about putting ourselves on a pedestal and saying, I am C2, look at me, bellicose. Yeah, it's all about making sure that the conversation, that language you're trying to convey, yeah, fits the mold of the conversation. Yeah. If you talk about the philosophy of life or the relations about countries, probably such words might work. But if you just talk about some sort of casual subject or talking about some sort of a survey that you conducted, you need specific phrases, topic specific.
Yeah, and I always say that clarity first.
Right.
If your piece of writing is unclear, it's impossible to read and impossible to assess. Well, Cambridge examiners will still assess, and they will still try hard to find something, you know, to praise you for. But still, if the text is written unclearly, it's impossible to concentrate, and it's a very, very hard job for a teacher to read such essay, because you can't correct it, you know. You can't say, I just, well, basically change here and change a little bit there and it's going to be fine. No, well, when you deal with this kind of writing, you have to rewrite the whole thing.
And they get frustrated and they get offended and they think that you're trying to devalue their language learning journey.
Yeah.
I've been there, but what is also important is the fact that if we talk about the difference between advanced English, yeah, coming back to it, and proficiency. So advanced is probably about picking up such phrases, but proficiency is knowing where and how to use them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It's more skillful appropriacy and register awareness.
Right. Like, you know them, your passive knowledge is supposed to be enormous, gigantic, if you will, but you use them when needs be. Not just because you want to show, look at me, yeah, that's me. They will see your beautiful, amazing English if you say it right, if you say it correctly. That's it, right? And also coming back to that, by the way, guys, if you agree with us, leave a thumbs up or a plus. Leave some comments right now. We might want to comment on them too then. By the way, one of those, misconceptions about teaching high levels, I think, is the fact that even if you're advanced, but you don't know or don't have such important techniques as, for example, being able to recast a sentence, yeah, during the interactional recasting, or extending them, yeah, or being able to just nudge them in the right direction and say, yeah, that's right. But if you don't have that, it means you're going to be feeling very much miserable during such life.
Yeah,
right.
One of the most hardest moments of teaching for CPE is when we are dealing with a compulsory essay. For those of you who have no idea, there are two input texts, quite short, on the same topic, that very often just take two different stances on the topic. And the task is to identify 2 points, 2 key points in each of this text, reformulate them in your own language, yeah, so you can't lift the language from the text.
Right.
Reformulate, evaluate, and add your opinion. And this is where people sometimes, quite literally, start to cry, because they, well, very, very often we have very ambitious people who come to us to an interview. They say that we only want an A, I'm going to work super duper hard, I'm going to be the best student, and so on. This is all very, very well and good, and well, motivation and ambition. It's a very good thing. But when they start doing this and when they realize that reformulation is a huge problem because they don't have the language to do it, well, that's a problem. Well, that's where you really have to grow in terms of your language. Yeah, you have to do it, well, not even with your eyes shut, yeah, but you sort of you need to have 5 minutes in order to do this. Yeah, and language should not be a huge hindrance in that, because you have to think about this, what we talked about at the beginning, all the abstract ideas, all these, you know, sort of adding your evaluation, adding this evaluative language and so on. This is a very, very challenging task, probably the most challenging in all the exams that I'm aware of. Yeah, but well, this is CPE, baby. Yeah, so this is C2 level, baby. Well, do you need this? Yeah, maybe you don't.
But again, if you're this, you know, if you have this unbridled passion for more, if you like the language itself, not just because you teach it or it's because of the bulk of your income, then of course you will strive for more, right? So that's what matters the most. You know what? A lot of people also ask, like even in the comment section, in the DM, I'm sure you're bombarded with such questions too. How do I know and feel this fine balance between being able to say things right and make an impression of someone who really practices what they preach? Because when I think of that, yeah, maybe I'll give you like a few seconds to think about that too. Because when I think of that, I realize that the best way to make sure that you make yourself understood, clarity first, you mentioned, and you sound good enough and you sound appropriate enough, is just to diversify your linguistic or your language diet. So not only are you supposed to just cram the textbooks, but make sure you watch TV series, make sure you watch YouTube, you add native speaker conversation into your diet, right? Make sure you read a lot, make sure you speak, for God's sake. Not just in class, because we can't speak much in class. Those are the students who come to us. They're doing most of the talking. We're nudging, we're commenting, right? We are inspiring. We are recasting those sentences and phrases, right? To make sure that they have a more specific way to say a certain thing. What would you say?
Yeah. Well, at least I can see two situations. So, for example, if you are in the exam, yeah, like people ask that, what should I do if I go to a CPE exam, the oral part? So how can I boast this, blah, 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 blah. And the learning situation, yeah, when you are in the lesson as a student. I think if you go to an exam, you just behave as naturally as you can. Because if you try to sort of fake words or phrases that you are not feeling comfortable with, it's going to be noted. It's not good. So in the exam, just behave as naturally as you can. The examiners will appreciate that, and you're going to demonstrate your real level where you are. Because if we talk about vocabulary acquisition, which is another huge area, and my area of research and expertise, I've been doing this for 12 years already. I love talking about vocabulary acquisition. So here we have the problem that you can only sound natural with the vocabulary that is already yours. You know this vocabulary so well, and you feel where you can use it, where you can throw it to impress your examiner, because you feel confident about this vocabulary. And this is great. If you are not feeling comfortable with it yet, well, you need to learn more about this vocabulary by watching, reading, talking, and so on, to make it part of your repertoire. And if we talk about the situation when you're a student at a lesson, what we recommend to our students all the time is to, well, you learn some new items, and for example, before the lesson or before a speaking club, try to plan vocabulary that you want to use during the lesson. Try to make this deliberate effort to experiment with the vocabulary. The teacher will feedback on that. This is what this is their profession. Yeah, this is what they do. But if you don't make this conscious effort to try to experiment, to involve, and in a learning situation, you're in a safe situation because you will not be penalized for an unsuccessful experiment, right? But if you do this effort, so you get this experience, you play with the word or with the phrase, and this is how you grow.
Oh, yeah, I'll second that because that's what I also tell my students. I say, in this lesson, it's okay to try, experiment, even jam your speech with English, like, like idioms, phraseology, whatever. But this is practice mode. If you make sure that they become part of you naturally, when you know exactly where to use them, and when you produce speech like we are right now, right? It's extemporaneous speech. By the way, speak about CPE, right?
Right.
Extemporaneous just popped into my head. It
Yeah,
means
just
that,
spruce with this fancy
yeah,
words,
yeah, yeah, like that. Yeah, just to
spice
spice
it
it.
up.
Yeah, exactly. Jazz it up. Then you use it if it comes naturally, if it flows out of your mouth, if it doesn't look practiced. Because what sometimes we do in speech, by the way, I sometimes hear people say, when I have a live stream or whatever, I get ready. When I get ready for the live stream, I write down a list of phrases I'm going to use. I would say, I myself now, like, list less, I know whatever less, only my computer. Why would I do that? The point is to get a message across, to share opinions, to show how you practice what you preach. Yeah, not to impress. We might dress to impress, right? But not speak to impress. Agree?
Well, probably I can imagine contexts where we try to impress. Well, I don't know, be it a job interview or
Ah,
something like that. But still, I think, well, if you mention this context of live streams in English to I don't know, maybe some people do live streams in English or write their blogs in English for learning purposes, which is great, which is a fantastic way of practicing. Yeah? But if we talk about teachers, experts, our peers, yeah, if you sort of will plan ahead, like write down vocabulary, it might sound a little bit unnatural. And again, you see, there is the difference in context, because if you are a learner, we all are learners, yeah, we learn the whole life. But if you're a learner and you try to experiment with that and might be not always successful, that's okay. People gonna still like you and praise you for that, yeah. But if you play a pretender a little bit, it's like if you try to make an impression of somebody you are not
mhm.
yet really, people also gonna feel
They
this,
pick
yeah.
up on it. Yeah, it shows for sure. And it feels practice. That's why I decided to have those live talks with pros in English, because we are showing here that we're like ourselves. We are flawed. We can forget about things. We can maybe misuse a word, but we speak and we inspire you to speak, hopefully, guys. If you agree with us, again, let us know in the comment section below. By the way, it's just crazy because it's more than an hour already. And I can't get
Time
enough.
flies. I don't notice the time.
I need to speed it up a bit because I know that you don't have much time to discuss, but we have a lot of questions yet. I
Good.
would choose the juiciest ones in terms of relevance, I would say, because a lot of them are very similar. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
For example, it's quite interesting. So imagine this. Valentina asks, you are a C2 speaker. You have C2 speakers in your class as students. Is it difficult for a teacher to achieve recognition among such students with a high level of English proficiency as you are? How do you get this? Yeah, in the case with you, it's a bit difficult because they know you already. They know
Okay.
your ALT personality. You've been
Mm-hmm.
showing a lot of things you can do and you've
Mm-hmm.
done, you do practice what you preach. But generally, what advice would you give to those who are like almost on the same level but can still teach things? How do they get recognition?
I think it's a psychological question. How you build trust between
Mhm,
you and your students. And it's much, much, much more than just language or language
mhm,
proficiency. And here we can think of a lot of things. How you start your course, how you treat your students, how you treat yourself, how you behave with them. Yeah, and I think that again, best teaching and learning results are achieved in a very good group, in a friendly group, in a friendly atmosphere with great rapport. And establishing this rapport, well, it's an art, it's a skill of a teacher. How you make your first contact, how you warm up at the beginning of the course, how you establish this, you know, trust, this atmosphere of safety, you know, that no one is afraid of making mistakes, no one is afraid of other people laughing at them or something like that. Yeah. And again, if you show your students that even though you might be a little bit more experienced than them, you're still a learner, you're humbled by this status, and you don't behave like an oracle, you know, on the pedestal, you know. Oh, she has CPE grade A 228. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Sprinkling some knowledge around. Yeah.
Yeah. Just can I just breathe the air around you? Yes. Yeah, just I mean you have to be humble, and you have to understand your limitations, you know. And I think that humor is a huge power here. Yeah. And this is why every time there is a question that pops up, because no one knows everything. Yeah. You self as a teacher and your students have to constantly check things in the dictionary, in a corpus, find new examples, Google it, and so on and so forth, and have this debate and a conversation about vocabulary items you're discussing now, you're learning. Yeah. And if you are ready to recognize that you were wrong, you say, well, you know, I told you last lesson, I told you that it should be this, but you know, after the lesson, I actually checked it, and you know, I found out that you were right. So thank you very much for showing me this, you know. And well, for example, I do it all the time. I think that like my students can confirm that we have such situations just every other lesson, and I'm absolutely fine by saying that, well, you know, my first idea was this, you know, but then I thought and I checked, and it turns out that your idea was correct, you know, and that's okay. We are all learning, you know. And I think that, again, if we come back to this best learning outcomes, you know, the best learning outcomes happen in this atmosphere of constant learning, supporting, challenging each other here and there, yeah, but challenging in a good way, yeah, not just trying to sort of to hurt your pride or something like that, but just sort of, you know, that we together are learning, and we're together searching for the truth, the right answer, the correct word,
Exactly.
be it whatever.
Yeah. Or I'm here to put you through the screening process. Let's see what you know. Yeah. It's not about that. You came here because you're comfortable learning with me. You like my personality. So I would say, to sum up what you just said, it's all about the teacher's personality. Yeah. It's all about I like this word that I picked up recently, professionality, professional personality. Yeah. Personality. Students are so happy when they say, yeah, we are right. Thanks for that. See?
Yeah, and Lisa, thank you so much for your comments. I say Lisa is one of my alumni, my CPE alumni of last year. I'm very proud of her. Lisa, thank you very much that you're watching and commenting us so actively.
Oh, yeah. I can't agree more. Profound thoughts. Thank you so much. By the way, I can't but ask you before we move on to the next question, what is your favorite dictionary?
Who's your favorite child?
It's like, how long is a piece of string, as Paul Newton
Yeah, well,
said.
actually, I do have my favorite. I love Longman for a number of reasons, and I think that those who are subscribed to my VK group, they already know that. I love the way Longman is organized, that they include collocations and thesaurus like in one article. There on the shelf, I have my favorite collocations, dictionary, and thesaurus by Longman, which I use as electronic one, but I just bought a paper one because I wanted to be on my shelf. I also love Oxford, and generally, well, my rule of thumb is that on my computer, on my Bilingua, I added the major ones: Oxford, Longman, Cambridge, Collins, and Macmillan. So the big five. And when I'm checking something, I just like look at all five of them. But on my phone, I have Longman, and if I need to search for collocations or synonyms in thesaurus, I rather check it in Longman.
Yeah, I would definitely pick Longman and Collins out of your top five. I love them a lot. I love Longman for having those categories, you know, with meanings. Like in this cat, you can use it like that, and here comes a list. So the entries are huge, comprehensive. I just love. By the way, am I a nut job, or are there any other guys here who love reading dictionaries sometimes? Because once I said it in a class, when I was at university, everyone looked at me with this kind of, oh my God face, you know? By the way, Polina, what do you have to say? Do you sometimes read some entries? Casual.
Well, it's a sort of procrastination. It's like, you know, you just like stuck into it, and just you find out that 20 minutes you're searching through this and that.
Yeah.
Or it's also a very good idea when you write something, for example, in English, and I reread my text and think, I use this word here, but does it really mean what I meant? Let's check. Yeah, and then yes, okay. Or sometimes it turns out that, well, actually it meant something slightly different, so I have to search for, you know, this self-reflection skills, you know, that's
Exactly, but sometimes I go overboard a little. I might just have some coffee and like, oh, Collins, here we go. So I'm like, all right, intricate decoration, detail, life. Okay. Some of the comments are love it. I believe you were trying to say love reading. Tell me about it. I'm not so nuts yet.
a lot of dictionary nerds listening.
I mean, look at us, yeah. The face speaks for itself. I love Collins. Enjoy digging into it. Same. And then Ludwig.
And Ludwig.
Ludwig.
Yeah, Ludwig is my favorite. Yeah.
Ludwig. By the way, I started using this new service maybe like a few weeks ago because I love reading these. They're like, on my desk all the time, these two. Okay. I'm a lexical approach aficionado. And Leo Sullivan suggested one of the good websites to check collocates, because collocates, I think, are the most important things when it comes to vocabulary. You have to make sure that you collocate that correctly, because combinatorics, it just rules the world in a way, yeah? So, English world. And he suggested the website netspeak.org. Have you heard of it?
Yes, I heard it from Leo, exactly. Yeah.
Because I had an interview with him.
Yeah, by the way.
I watched it. By the way, it's important to mention, for those who might not know, for some obscure reason, Polina has conducted numerous amounts of interviews with the biggest ELT stars on earth.
I was so privileged, yeah.
Exactly. I was watching like, wow. And then, wait, but she's going to be on my series. Wow. A bit of stardom. So you interviewed Andrew Walkley, who co-authored this book, Teaching Lexically with Hugh Deller. Did you interview Hugh Deller?
Twice. Hugh is the only one whom I interviewed twice.
Yeah, I will try to get him on my show, but I'm not that sure. No, because he's too busy. Also, Leo Sullivan. So, and when he talks about that NetSpeak website, what I like about that is that you can play with it. Not only can you just enter a word and put 3 dots to see how many collocates, right? Not collocations, collocates you can use and their frequency, but you can also do a deeper dive, exploring some Google context, and you can even compare collocates. So I've been very fond of it.
Yeah. You reminded me of that, and I think that I have to, restore this once again.
Yeah.
There is a question: where can I find those interviews? Well, go to my VK group, vk.com/Polina English. This is my group where you can find everything in the videos. I also uploaded a lot of things on my YouTube, but on my YouTube, it's not everything. Yeah. So there
Mhm.
is this interview with Scott Thornberry, with Gavin Dudney, and so on.
Right.
But I think that Leo's interview is still on VK because it was a live on VK. And with Hugh, it also was, one of the interviews was a textual version, and the other one was a live on VK. So just go to my VK group. You can find the link in my bio here on Instagram.
Exactly, and you won't get enough. And make sure you get a notepad because you're supposed to write down some things, guys. Amazing interviews, amazing. What's the name of that website? I missed it. It's netspeak.org. Netspeak, okay? We might include it. Do you use OSDIAC collocation website? Never heard of this. Do you know this one? And
No, no.
that's a good one. We need to make sure I will even type it right here, okay?
Yeah.
I will make sure I'll look it up. Thank you so much, Anna. Just two more quick questions, okay, before we finish, unfortunately, because it looks like a longer conversation than we have time for.
That's right. Well, we can make a second series
Oh,
sometime
are you
later,
up for
in a
it
couple of
one
months.
day?
Hmm?
Are you up for it one day?
Yeah,
Wow.
absolutely.
I'm going to be privileged. I was about to, treading carefully and ask you about that, but then you said it. Thank you so much.
I'm going to be happy. Yeah.
Wow. So one of the questions comes from a university professor, one of my colleagues at Belgrade State University. He asks, because he teaches mass media, English, translation studies and everything, and he's very much into, linguistic and translation. So he asks, what media resources, I think mass media resources, like newspapers maybe, would you recommend for proficiency level learners?
Mm-hmm. Very good question. My favorites are what is called the quality press,
Quality.
which is in the first line. It's The Guardian, The Independent, The New York Times, The New Yorker, National Geographic. I'm a huge proponent of The Guardian. First of all, because I truly believe that this is probably one of the best British newspapers, who's becoming bigger and bigger, and their app and their website is for free. You can donate. I read them for a long time without donating, but then I thought, gosh, I've been reading them for 8 years, and can I donate 4,000 rubles per year to them? Yes, I can, and I bought it because it's totally worth it. They are not just good for their quality journalism; they are very good for inviting celebrity opinion makers, writers, whoever, musicians, to write columns there. So you can, for example, write columns, but I don't know, Ian McEwan, who is like one of the most important British writers of current times, or I don't know, Hilary Mantel, or you name it, So you can find all these people in The Guardian. That's why I think that they are doing extraordinarily good job.
Loved it. I know almost every one of those you mentioned, but I have another quick question. When I read Guardian, I'm kind of okay with it language-wise, but don't you think that it's a little bit too jam-packed with sophisticated wordings and syntax? Maybe for writing it could work, but for casual reading?
Well, the question was about C2, and for C2, it serves its purpose. And I think it's also very much dependent on what kind of things you're reading on Guardian, because it's so diverse. I'm reading, so every Sunday I get this digest of books, Guardian books. So I read reviews, I read opinion columns, this and that. And yes, it's sophisticated. So when I read about, I don't know, like Oscars, analysis of the Oscars, one of the years, I also felt like, oh goodness, this is so smart, this is so sophisticated. But if you read, I don't know, current affairs or sports or whatever, it's going to be different. And well, I think if you're searching for something more, let's say, colloquial, well, you can look at forums or comments of people. By the way, my source of this, super real, natural, authentic English is a Facebook book club lovers. So I'm collecting Folio Society. I'm a huge fan of Folio Society. This is the British publisher, quite famous one. And well, people who collect the Folio Society editions, they are like, it's like a sect. So we are in a sect, and there is a community of Folio Society lovers, and there are people from all around the world, really from all continents, who collect books. So you can imagine it's a very educated audience, but it's also a very humorous audience, very funny, and they write so many, you know, jokes, so many puns. When every time I go there and just read like comment, I always make the screenshots and I show it to my girls, to my team. Look at this! Look at this!
Oh, juicy, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
About a linguistic diet, you see, so that's how you diversify, because one of the questions was, how do you keep it up, your level, you see? So that would be one of those things. By the way, Lada says, I actually love the language in Guardian much better than New York Times. I couldn't agree more, but sometimes it could be a bit difficult, though I forgot that I asked about C2, so guilty as charged. It's super idiomatic even when reading on politics, right? Urban Dictionary, if you want to be those canary neighborhood. Yeah, but
be cautious. Appropriacy and register.
Yes, appropriacy, by the way. And also, I don't like one little fact about this dictionary is because, you know, anyone can add their own meaning, which means who proofreads it, who confirms it, right? Maybe it's so they can lead you down their own path, right? All right. One last but important question that I actually got many times, even from VK. It goes as follows. What is beyond proficiency? What should C2 students do to keep this level up after passing the exam? You did say work, but what would the next step be? Is there any sort of maybe exam or course or you know, stratum of language that you can still work on at this level?
Wow, that's a very good question. I think that if you have achieved your CPE grade A, it's a certain freedom that you may feel. And I felt this freedom after my third attempt, when I passed with 228 out of 230. I still don't understand how I did it. But it was, again, you know, some just accident, you know. Well, when you think about it, language is so much more than just an exam. And when I say freedom, I mean that you may choose whatever you want to develop and specialize in. I know that some people love informal language and slang. I don't know, they delve into it and this pretty phrases, and they spice them up, they spice up their language with them and so on. Some people, I don't know, have some particular areas of interest. If we look at the descriptors of the CFR scale, and we're going to find a lot more in the C2 descriptors than we can find, for example, in the CPE exam. And this thought, this awareness made me think of a course that we started this year, so from September. It's called Post-Proficiency.
Oh.
I enjoy it absolutely. We have such brilliant students there. We have 2 groups. Now we have 1 group. But these lessons is just sheer enjoyment for me, because you talk to such smart people, and we don't have a course book there. So we take authentic materials, we take articles. Mostly we base our lessons on different articles, and we discuss topics that can hardly find their place in a course book because they might be very controversial. But we are free to discuss whatever we want. And the language that we actually pick up from this kind of material is very diverse, and again, this is the language that you can hardly find in any kind of course book. So again, this is one way of freedom that you can develop the language by taking a course and I don't know, working on the authentic articles and so on. For me personally, this freedom meant that I can, well, more or less stop working on course books. Yeah, like I have this plenty of course book for this, course book for that. And when I was preparing for CPE, a huge part of my preparation was by doing past papers, by working through, I don't know, idioms in use and so on. So I sort of allowed myself not to do it as actively as I used to do, but at the same time, by reading, by collecting books, by, I don't know, going to this Facebook group of book lovers, by reading a lot of, I don't know, The Guardian or whatever I want, I live in language, yeah, and I enjoy this life, and English is a huge part of my life, and a huge part of my life I live in English. And I think that this is where development continues. It's not as, well, let's say, as systematic as it was when I had my goal of gaining CPE grade A, but it's a very diverse, a very interesting life. And when you say work, 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 and no play, I think that now for me it's more play than work, even though it's still work, but I feel very privileged about it. I feel that I enjoy it so much. And I don't feel that I'm working hard in my language.
And that I'm missing out, right?
Yeah, that's
By
right.
the way, Trendy Reading, I'm sorry I don't know your name, says our post-proficiency group is just a blast, I believe. Thanks, Polina. So this is what post-C2 life looks like.
Yeah.
Right? I would say.
It's a very good life. I enjoyed very
exactly.
much.
So you're giving much leeway. You already have done a lot, yeah? By the way, quick question that I for some reason missed. Does a teacher who teaches C1 or C2, no, I would put it that way. Is a teacher who teaches higher levels supposed to have a certificate in English? For example, I don't have certificates. Does it make me a less better teacher?
Well, but you do you teach for exams?
No.
No.
So
well,
far, yeah.
Yeah, again, it's like with ice skating, yeah? Like, if you can't ice skate, can you train somebody who's ice skating? Yes, but there are questions about it, yeah? And I think that if you teach for exams, then it's just sort of a rule of good conduct to have a certificate, yeah? Even if it might be not taken yesterday or whatever, yeah? But I think that having a certificate or having a CA or CP is more about having a goal, a particular goal, and achieving this goal and have this certification. Or again, if we are talking about imposter syndrome and all these kind of expertise related things, if you want to sort of have no discussions about your level, yeah, you get CPE grade A and you say, well, I don't have to prove anything to anyone. I have CPE grade A. This is what I have.
Right, right. So it's all about your needs. It's all about what you teach. If you teach exams, I would agree. You need to just go through it, try it out, make sure that you were in those shoes. Yeah, now pass the shoes, right?
Yeah.
Metaphorically speaking. If you teach general English, it all depends. Yeah, it all depends. If you feel this urge, that's what I've been talking about in my live streams. If you feel the urge, if you believe it tests your perseverance, if you need it for work or for going abroad, yes, go for it. If you feel fine by that, but you definitely strive for more, go for it. There's no wrong answer, right? One last thing I would add very, very quickly is that in my post C2, even though like what, not approved, yeah, not confirmed life, I use a lot of Netflix audio description feature. I love it a lot because when you read a book, you see all those narrative in the book. They describe, you know, you watch a movie or TV series and you can hear a narrator describe the ambience, the actions, feelings of the actors and everything, and you pick up on the shades of meaning. You gain lexical precision. And again, when you read the book, you see all of those phrases in action. So it's like a win-win situation. I like using it a lot. By the way, guys, next week I'm going live with Lada. She's also watching us. She's a great speaker of English. By the way, on her way to CAE, as far as I remember. And we're going to be talking about being language fit and how we up our game. For now, I think we have discussed the bulk of the questions, unfortunately, with a lot of unfortunate feelings. I have to let you go, but Polina, I have to say, this was one of the best live streams I've had. The ambience is all there. You exude knowledge. You exude confidence. Even though you say, I do have this imposter syndrome. Yeah, you
Thank you.
speak the truth. And I like your honesty, that you're being yourself, yeah? And that you're showing by example that if you just put your mind to it, you can master even 3, 4, or 5 languages. Just make English time a routine, right? So that's how we call it today for today. Okay, hopefully we'll meet sometime soon and think of a topic.
So, I really mean it. I will be glad to continue.
Yeah, for sure. So guys, if you have any suggestions for our future topics with Polina, just leave them in the comment section below. Also, make sure to comment on what Polina had to say and I also had to say, because feedback matters. So thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much for Polina.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It's been a huge pleasure. I admire what you do. You're a fantastic professional. I wish you all the luck and all the professional growth you can dream of. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
And everybody who listened to us, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And have a great day, everyone, and Polina too. All right, I'll see you next time.
See you.
It's not a goodbye. See you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.